Yeah, I want to invite folks to speak into the room.
The thing about wanting to be nice, I think that's a very big fault of mine. And also the fact that we when we listen to students, student teachers responding to students, and when we do it ourselves, we always give the, oh, that I liked your answer, but we don't necessarily tell them why. And so it just sort of becomes meaningless. And it's one of the things that I had noted for myself this coming semester, that I would definitely try to work on saying meaningful things, even if it doesn't necessarily make me as nice as I would like to be.
It's been a real big piece, and sometimes we treat speaking to others as if you're either being mean or you're being nice. And there's a whole world of authentic dialogue in between that space. And I think, yeah, it's a level of respect when I can say, you know what, I really liked what you did, and this is what I saw, and this is why I liked it. That's so much more useful than just that was great, and not saying why. And then just think about, drop down, why am I emphasizing how great or awesome I think something is when I know I saw some moves in the class that range from sloppy to even egregious, and I'm still not getting at it. Thank you.
Something that I'd like to say quickly is that I went to the website of your organization to get to take a look at the statement that you were referring to. And I need to spend time digesting that completely because it's an incredible statement. And I need to digest it so I can use it.
And when you say digest it so I can use it, is there a particular part you need to digest?
The verbiage that you're using in that statement is excellent as far as what I've heard from other places about, teaching diversity and equity, using diversity and equity in business, in other organizations. What you said and how you said it is exceptional, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I openly invite all of you as colleagues to start to email and reach out to each other, to even sit in conversation of smaller numbers of us just around a question, or and we don't need to know each other deeply. We can get to know each other through a process of sharing information. One thing I want to share that is not in that video, but all of what I set up about this is how we started, and I kind of go through all these steps that we're still in, is people needed to be coached out of their roles. And I didn't make that clear. Everybody should not get to do the job they want to do just because they want to do it, especially when we are fighting an equity battle. And education is the one place where power shows up just in the fact that some people who are not committed to do a job get to keep their job. And so just knowing that I see through supervisors to kids, and I'm a mother, I'm a Black woman with Black kids in schools. I see through supervisors, and I imagine, supervisor, will you coach this teacher to be the teacher I would want teaching my kids? That is my lens. And some people do not understand that their role in what they say is on a continuum of just creating ease and facility for that teacher to learn and be the good human being, the good, strong, protective space maker for kiddos. Or sometimes what we say and don't say is that same person who's overwriting referrals for Black students in their class. Because it's not like it's a hypothetical, it's not like some other dimension where disproportionality in discipline is occurring. We as supervisors are witnessing that and not doing anything about it. So I see us as a link in the chain that is more vital than I think folks who aren't in our role understand. feelings, thoughts, questions.
I have a question and a thought and a comment kind of all bundled into one.
Bring it.
I too love using video and video reflections. And I've had a set of kind of questions that have morphed a bit over the years, you know, nothing stays too stagnant. But I would love to see yours. Um, I also don't like to tell them, I like them to find up to 3 clips of 2 to 5 minutes that strike a chord with them for good, yuck, is it okay, ambiguity, or whatever. You know, they self-identify. That's not to say I may not have a few comments after that on something else not addressed, but I really believe it's important for the students to take a hard look and think about it before we have a conversation.
Mhm. And the way we use that clip, so if I go in and I'm observing through the TPEs, the student had to identify a TPE that drove their lens for that lesson. So they tell me which portion of their lesson they want recorded. I do that. Immediately, before we even have any words with each other, we watch that segment of their video that they identified that they wanted me to record that is based on the TPE they selected as the lens for their lesson plan. We watch it in silence and they're asked to write notes about things they are seeing that either got to that TPE or missed the mark. So we actually start from a very granular point so that the student has to do all the talking first. And all I say is, so-and-so, what did you see in that video clip that responds to what your TPE was about? So I'm asking them, so from the moment they sit down and start to write out in that lesson plan template, they're directing the gaze. Then we open it up and then I might be able to get into some places where I said, here's something I wanted to ask a question about. But we want to start from a place where they're driving it. So it comes back to, and they're accountable for it. And then they have a really clear point to go back to and go, okay, my next step action, be it reteach a portion of the lesson, apologize. There's all kinds of next steps that arise out of looking at video. Because one thing about video, as opposed to what we've done in the past where I tell them something based on what it looked like in my head, we just saw and heard the same thing. It's not speculative. Let me play that for you again. Do you see when you stepped over that student and almost crushed their hand and then looked down at them like they were in your way? Like those are the things you see in video. So it's beyond just the content. It's about how that teacher's body is in space, who they put their back to, who they walk over, whose name they never get right when they keep mistaking the same 2 Asian girls and calling them by the different names. That stuff shows up on video. And it's not about me going, well, I thought you did this. It's like, look at the video. Now let's talk. So we need video. It's evidence. It's evidence of everything we're doing well, everything we need to improve, and everything that actually is me as a practitioner contributing to inequity in the classroom. But I don't see it because sometimes inequity is really subtle.
So you said that you only tape a portion.
Yep.
How do you do that? How do you determine that ahead of time?
The student does. They literally highlight the text and it gets them to be really hyper focused around how they're setting up formative assessment throughout a lesson. So sometimes they'll go, you know what, Nives, I realized I should have recorded more. And I sometimes record a little more, but no one has time to look at 55 minutes of recorded data. So we were thinking about, we look through the it didn't align completely with what they had planned. It still gives us really good information to talk about because you still see kiddos and you still see some type of teaching. So there is something to use even if they missed the mark on what they thought they were going to capture.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Question, Dr. Nives, did you have better luck? Because I see someone in the chat said that GoReact was a great tool. We used more this past year. Could that be something we keep using a little more next year instead of just abandoning it when we go back in person?
We started using GoReact 3 years ago. So going into quarantine, we use GoReact because that means the student, GoReact is great. So we were ready to use it, apply it to online learning, but Go React allows us to also differentiate the way supervisors can go into the field. We can do a live stream Go React. We can have the student record through Go React, where we look at it later if there's a scheduling or travel issue. But also, I teach the field practicum course. So I assign weekly Go React teaching captures where the teacher chooses a 5-minute segment and they're recording them. So Go React becomes this repository for the student teacher so that they can go back when they're writing their thesis and they have real data, because we're trying to also support them in being practitioner researchers. Start to break that that really hard binary between you're either a researcher or you're a practitioner, because we want them to always look at their practice. Go React has been excellent. I am not trying to like get you all to go and get Go React, but I have to say that they've been
That's
really
good.
responsive to the needs of programs and how they adjust the platform to make it ever more useful. But yeah, it's really, really useful, and it's user friendly.
Is it free?
Oh no. Yeah,
But
the good stuff. No, it is not.
So the universities need to buy into the platform.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a subscription, and I forget how they break down the numbers, but like, for example, we have 75 users this year. And that means we're paying, what was our invoice was something like, oh goodness. I don't want to waste I can find that out later and share that with resources if needed. I don't want to waste
That's okay.
time. Sorry.
So logistically speaking, when using Go React or any of these video recording platforms, thinking specifically going back in person, what does that look like for you? How have you used it pre-pandemic, pre-online teaching?
Thank you. So what happens, so if I'm doing a legit in-person observation, the student teacher is instructed to have the lesson plan printed out with their cell phone or their iPad already unlocked in a place for me to pick it up, already open to their Go React app. And so then I'm sitting there, I've got their lesson plan with the highlighted section for me to record, and I literally hold up their device, and they've already logged into their Go React account. It's set up for that day and that observation, and I record on their device. Once I'm done, it uploads, and that's how we used it before, pre-pandemic. And then we just sit down, they open up their device. And the idea is, it being their device, we're keeping the onus of documenting and organizing themselves on them. So then we're able just to sit down, go and find a little quiet corner. And then minutes after they just taught their lesson, we're looking on their device. The recording is saved on their camera roll as well as uploaded to the Go React platform. And before we were even using Go React, we would just use their cell phone and we would record through video. But we use their device.
So they're highlighting on their lesson plan the portion of lesson or TPE that they're wanting to highlight. And so I'm just wondering, kind of timing wise, to know where to expect that. I mean, just with our experience, we can have an idea of when that's going to happen, but how do you gauge when that's going to happen? I'm just thinking timing.
Because I'm looking at the lesson plan. Like, I've looked at the lesson plan and given feedback, so I'm tracking it. So that point where they just finished doing like
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm watching the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then some students like try to be like stage managers, so they go, Nives, this right here. I'm like, thanks, I got it. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you.
In your debrief conversation, then you said, I think that they initiate the conversation based on the TPE they've chosen. From your experience, how much of the debrief conversation then is focused on that Go React clip, and then how much are you able to devote to other things you observed?
The priority is on that point, on that moment, because sometimes time becomes an issue that has become in the past for some supervisors an excuse to not get anything done. So the first part is, if you only have 15 minutes for debrief because there's some other stuff going on, you know that we're going to get at that piece from the lesson and a next step action. The other thing is we have supervisory groups. So some of those things that we see that are trending across student teachers, we can address those with a whole group. if there is something that really needed my attention, needed me to bring up and discuss, we would call it right there. But what we have other mechanisms in place, so we're not putting all of the weight of dialoguing and getting deeper to that critical lens on that one little moment. Because if we do, we've had to plan their supervisory group, and then their field practicum course is where we're linking practice with some of the theory and some of their work. So there's more opportunities to talk about, in small groups as a class, what was going on in a lesson. So yeah, that's how we're able to make sure things do get covered without losing the real meat of the moment, connected to the lesson, connected to the kiddos. I'm looking at, the Go React. This was Nicole. The Go React has colored markers. Just wanted to call out. Yeah, we make our own markers using TPEs. Yep. Next step actions I see here. What are some types of next step actions? Next step actions are, they have to be directly connected to what the student identified is what was missing or what do they need to remediate. Sometimes that's on them. Like I've had students go, I really did say that. I don't remember saying that, but I said that. And so what are you going to do about it? And they have to write down those next steps, and those are documented in their TPE Google form. That's a record of how they are able to demonstrate assimilation of the TPEs and how that translates across into practice. So next step means you're doing something tomorrow. It's not it's not abstract. It might be even those 3 students that were sitting at the reading table, and they need to articulate it and they have to write it. And so that becomes data, and we document it. So then I, as a supervisor, come back and I say, how'd that go? And we usually cover that in soup group. Like, all of you had next steps based on your observations. Let's talk through some of those. Can you share with the group what the next step was and what you did? Because we want them always thinking about every move matters. Every word, every move matters. But yeah, next step actions. I would like suggestions for white supervisors working with white pre-service teachers to have productive talk. How do we hold each other's feet to the fire when our privilege shades everything? Okay, I'm not trying to be flippant. How do you not hold their feet to the fire? It's a funny question for me because I'm thinking among a group of white supervisors working with white pre-service teachers, I can imagine there are various levels of racial identity awareness. So I think if some assessment needs to be done as to why haven't people been having more productive conversation, and then defining what productive conversation means. I think with any group, it's also, what are you willing to give up? If you really want to do equity, what are you willing to give up that has been comfy, cozy for you? That's usually the question that stops people. And sometimes what you're willing to give up, until you give it up, you don't realize that was a burden you were carrying in the first place. Wasn't even useful. So thinking about, and is your group open to having supervisors from other universities join? I know I've been thinking, I think I mumbled that. The question from Susan was, is your group open to having supervisors from other universities join? If I'm interpreting that correctly, we have a set group that's hired, and based on the work that I talked about in that video, I invest in them across a lot of domains because the goal is to keep those people in this role and grow their role. But what I have been working on is more of a network of folks that will become a learning community of supervisors. So I'm trying to respond to 2 things. We don't have a revolving door of supervisors, but we used to. And that was problematic. The idea is supervisors really matter. And so the fight and the push for ways to offer this as a job that is a job. So if you're a part-time supervisor, that's part of your income. Because I know that sometimes the impact of not having the infrastructure that allows for a certain pay scale or a certain place that supervisors can get to, you have people that are doing a lot of work and not being compensated for it. And that becomes a place where we start to weigh how much time do I have to put into all that this job really demands. And so those are things that really need to be sorted out, like on our bigger departmental levels, about, do we really want this to be done well? We do need to compensate people so they're not running hither and yon trying to hustle jobs.
Coming back real quick, Nives, if you don't mind, to
course.
the video recording. When does that all start with candidates? Is it from day one? It's, you know, it's their first formal observation? Is that, you know, second or third observation? When does that recording start happening? 'Cause
Immediately.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And you know, they're set up for it when they come to orientation in June before they start their placement in late August. So we start doing a lot of community building. We use the courageous conversations about race protocols deeply. So they get used to the idea. We norm the idea that public education is not private. So they're recording themselves, putting things out, getting used to getting feedback with really low stakes subject matter. And that they understand that this is part of the work they signed up to do based on what attracted them through our identity statement. So that means that everything you do, everybody can see. And we do start that day one. And every year, I'm so nervous. What part's making you nervous? They'd be nervous anyway if you weren't filming them.
Question, have you had any challenges, or how have you handled mentor teachers who might not be as enthusiastic about these changes?
We don't have that problem because mentor teachers in schools apply to work with us. Because I shifted the program, because showing up in people's classrooms and the principal doesn't even know you there is ridiculous. So the principal, it's called a site team. Whoever the site administrator is, and cooperating teachers who are like, I want to do this because my values align with the BE3 identity values, they apply. And so we've been building relationships, and we're always growing new, and sometimes within a school site team, those teachers will kind of switch out one year and come back in. But yeah, we don't have that issue. We're in partnership with the CTs. I kick it with the CTs more than I do the students, because the idea is we want to support them and never have this, never have something that makes them feel like we're just imposing upon them, but that they are not left to figure things out. And also for our student teachers to see model, what does adult collaboration look like?
I just wanted to say that at Humboldt, during the fall semester, when they're doing most of their methods classes and everything, and they do their observation, we are using Go React at least 2 times during that semester. So they're getting used to doing filming and getting evaluated by the filming. And then we do it, you know, fully second semester very often.
Yeah, the more they do it, the better. And I wish that we did have more time to really break down and talk about Go React, the protocol I designed, the procedures we designed. Those are absolutely useless if we're not doing the work that gives us the discernment to know how to apply it. I love the cool tools. I love the great platforms. I love having a protocol that is written and we've gotten it looking all glossy and sexy. But what it is our supervisors, the reason why they continue, they demonstrate and articulate and live in the work they do as anti-racist. So we've actually dispensed with using, because, you know, every time there's a new buzzword, everybody's using it. We were decolonizing curriculum. I'm like, you can't decolonize curriculum if you are not decolonized yourself. So let's stop talking about it. So there were some things that were happening that I was like, let's not be the people that get caught in the tropes and we're just running around Berkeley free speeching and talking about equity, but there's nothing in our lives that really is living into it. So the litmus test for all of us and supervisors is kind of a joke. It's like, are you equitable at home with your friends and family? Are you an anti-racist in the street when you're in the grocery store? Do you understand what it means to be decolonized? Do you understand what it means to, for me as a person of color, to know when I carry whiteness and I need to check myself, because people of color can carry whiteness. So when we're talking about whiteness, we're not necessarily talking about white people. So all of that I say is separate. Do you do the work, and are you willing to do the work? And that's what matters to me. The tools and stuff are easy, all that's easy. Protocols are easy. Guidelines are easy. TPEs are great.
Let's
Hi.
take a final question from Nicole, who's patiently raised her hand.
Excuse me. Hi, thank you so much for all your comments. What would your top 3 or 2 pieces of advice be for those teacher ed programs who don't have mentors in their schools, who are actually signing up with aligned, life value statements, and there's conflict between the values and the anti-racist teaching practices you're supporting in the candidates with their actual mentors in school? Does that make sense?
Let me cut. Are you asking what to do when there's not values alignment between your university and the mentor teachers you're working with?
Yeah, as a supervisor or advice
As a
for
supervisor.
supervisors. Yeah.
Okay, not trying to be flippant again. I don't give advice, and this is why. That's a really hard question to answer, because my first thought would be stop working with them, but we know it's not that easy. So there needs to be a plan. It's not about advice. It's about what is the longitudinal plan? What is the time that your university, your department has to take to go, how do we start to shift the system to design something that's going to give us the outcomes we want, and we're not compromising with teachers that aren't in alignment with what we're doing, or maybe we need to get our values clear. But that's a process that has to be entered into the systemic. It's not even one point. That's why I'm saying I can't even give advice on that, because we're in the systems change process that you saw in that video. It's not a done deal. We still have people that on paper, they sound really equitable. They're not. I've watched them teach. And in my role, I have to coach them out. They can't work with us anymore. But I can't just do it like this. I have to use the system we have in place. So that's a big one, and that we all face that one.
Thank you. Horizontal partnering, and thank you.
Dr. Wetzel de Cediel, I want to thank you on behalf of the CTARN team. I want to thank all of our participants for attending today. From my perspective, I'm so inspired and deeply moved by your work. I can see lots of nods out there. It's just incredibly inspiring to hear from you. It's motivating. You make me want to learn more. You've pointed to some direction on how we might be able to hear more from you, learn more from you. And if you have any final words for us on how we can further engage with you and the awesome, amazing, inspiring work that you're doing in Berkeley.
I just want to thank you all for electing to be here. And I'm putting my email in the chat. And I really, this is a genuine invitation. If you want a one-on-one and just talk, if you have a project you're interested in, if you're in the process of systems change for your program, let us talk about it. Because if we don't do this, we're going to keep on talking about the same things. We need to get busy working together. So yeah, I thank you all for being here, and I apologize for so many of the questions and thoughts that got put into the chat that I didn't even come close to addressing. But thank you for your patience. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Yeah, take care. Feel free to unmute and holler as you go out.